Live from New York, it's the show that's online looking at 40 pictures of Caleb Williams. It's first things first. I actually thought 40 pictures when Liam Cohn said that. I was like, it's a little light.
It's a little light.
There's way more than 40. Just from Bears-Packers games, I could give you 40. I'm Danny Parkins alongside Coach Mangini and Willie Colon. Did you like that, Coach? Liam Cohn, a little diss in the Bears' direction.
Yeah, I mean, typically,
Week 13, we'll see.
Typically those little, all the talking before the season really affects outcomes. So yeah, I love that stuff.
I know you do. I thought he might. Let's start in Dallas.
That's more the same.
Right. Rue is out
so
today
much talking
as he tries to get a trademark and copyright for S-Bob. However, Dak Prescott, he's working on his own acronym for this season. Gotti, a.k.a. greatest offense there is. Here's the quarterback explaining it in case you can't figure it out for yourself. Now, Coach, I know you don't love talking about it, you want to be about it, but I checked, there are no games to be played on July 31st, but so you get asked questions. That is just the way of the world.
No, I'm on board with this.
You're on board with this.
Here's where I'm on board. And from a organizational standpoint, there's always been high expectations in Dallas. And you hear Brian Schottenheimer talk about the Super Bowl. And again, I'm not a big believer in talking about things like that. But I think what Brian's doing, he's embracing the expectations that are always part of being a Dallas Cowboy. And he's embracing it in a really positive way. And then from Dak's perspective, it's the same thing. He's not talking about what the defense is going to do. He's not talking about what the special team is going to do, how many games they're going to win. He's talking about what he can control. And I think that there's a difference between bravado and confidence. And to me, Dak is projecting confidence in what they can do as opposed to just saying something for the sake of bravado. And if you look at Dak's production, he's one of the few guys who over 3 out of the last 5 years has thrown 30 or more touchdowns. And a couple days ago, we talked about how the offense has been over the last 5 years, also extremely productive, except when he was there. So for the leader of the offense to project confidence to the rest of the offense, I'm okay with that. I think that's a positive.
I would have gotten that one wrong. I would have thought that you would have disliked it. I love that. All right.
No, I also think part of the confidence comes from the fact that they feel like they're multi-layered, right? I think we forget last year the Cowboys finished 9th in rushing, right? They ran for 125 yards a game. And as much as we talked about CD and all these other weapons they had, Javonte Williams was a 1,000-yard back, right? And so now
he did a great job.
And so now, because of Clayton Adams and his ability to draw things up and be creative and have these blocking schemes that really can elevate this offense, Dak is looking like, hey, man, if we can throw it, run it, there's nothing we can do, especially if I'm on par and healthy. And I think what he doesn't get himself enough credit, is that he's become a lot more polished pocket passer. When he came into this league, he was considered a dual threat. Because he's, the second oldest quarterback in the NFC, he's realizing, man, my health matters, right? So if I can sit in this pocket, dissect at the line of scrimmage, if we can run the ball efficiently like we did last year, and if we can throw it all over the field, who's stopping us, right? And so I think their measuring stick is the Rams. They look at the Rams can do, and they say we can do the same thing. So I support the confidence, but I'm kind of on Coach's boat. You got to prove it.
Generally speaking, I don't love acronyms. I just think that they're kind of silly. You should be able to just communicate your thoughts with just whatever words come out, and then you don't have to put words letter acronyms attached to it. But I will say, it's a fairly remarkable accomplishment what's happened with Dak Prescott. We in these types of jobs, a criticism of us, and I would say at times a fair one, is, man, you guys just talk about the Cowboys. When in doubt, do a Cowboys segment. We joke about it all the time. Just, talk Cowboys, talk Chiefs.
They sell.
Right, they sell. Mm-hmm. But it's a remarkable accomplishment. Despite Jerry Jones and all of his bravado, despite all of the talking heads and everything we say, despite all of the hype, despite all of the national TV games, despite all of the huge opinions about this team, Dak Prescott is still underrated. He is awesome. He has just become a tier 1 excellent quarterback. And you mentioned the last 5 years. Even though I knew this in terms of the stats and how good he has been, and I showed you those numbers when, earlier in the week when he was out, if you do most points per game as a starting quarterback over a 5-year sample, Dak's number 1.
Yeah.
More than a guy who's been to a Super Bowl, more than a guy with 2 MVPs, more than a guy with 1 MVP, more than a guy with the best offensive line in the sport. Dak Prescott puts the ball in the end zone when he plays. So given that they do return basically everything on offense, given that there is continuity with the coaching staff, given that he's one of 2 guys last year who had 600 or more pass attempts, like it is a high volume passing attack, which leads to a high ceiling of potential points scored, Dak's confidence is earned in this case. Like if Dak plays, they're going to score a ton of points.
They should score a ton of points, and with Brian in that head coaching role and things, that not having a lot of transition on the coaching staff. I know obviously they have transitioned defensively, just like we talk about with Caleb or Drake, just another year of how this is going to run with a veteran quarterback and other guys that have been there for a long time. You just start at such a higher point. So you have a chance to be, you were explosive before, you have a chance to actually improve on that explosiveness.
Yeah, I think too, what you speak about, I think some of the reasons why Dak doesn't get the credit is because we know that he's capable of winning 10 to 12 games a year, right? It's what they do in the playoffs is what kind of hinders how we view him. So I think overall, Dak right now, his confidence should be high. Also because I think he honestly believes the defense is going to be better too. So he finally is going to have a defense. You made a comment yesterday, and I agree with you. If the Cowboys, just like the Bengals, can at least be ranked 20th, right? Now we're looking at this team in a whole different situation. When you got to go out and score 28, 30 points a game, that's a lot of pressure. Now Dak's saying, if this defense is going to be better, that takes the pressure off me as a quarterback, takes the pressure off the offense. If we only have to put up 21 points and the defense shows up, we're okay, right? We're in a good spot. So I think that's where part of that confidence comes from.
And look, Dak hasn't been totally overlooked here. Until Mahomes signed his deal this offseason, he was the highest paid player in the entire NFL. So it's not like
Well, I think he received more criticism than praise, and I think that's what Danny's talking about.
and
I mean,
a whole lot of money.
No, he's been paid a ton of money, but some of that was, a lot of the commentary around that was about Cowboys mismanagement. That they had given him that deal where he had the no tag clause, the no trade clause, so Dak had him over the barrel, so they had to give him the huge deal. Like when he signed that, nobody said, and that's because Dak Prescott is the best quarterback in football.
And he was injury prone too. Like he had dealt with some significant injuries for a couple of years.
I wonder in terms of, because like this conversation is less about them as contenders. It is about, to your point, like just focused on the offense and like their ability to be statistically dominant. If they are better defensively, like if it works, if the 2 first-round picks and the new defensive coordinator Christian Parker, all the things that they've done, does that bring it down? Like I wonder, like they had 600 pass attempts for Dak last year. Are they going to actually be less prolific of an offense if they are a little bit better defensively? Because they won't be trailing, they won't be in as many shootouts, as many games in the 30s.
I'm not sure if it means they're going to have to be less prolific. They should get some more opportunities because the defense, those drives won't be going forever.
Right.
You know, the defense will actually be able to get off the field on third down. Now, could it change the complexion of how the games are called? Could we see more runs? Yeah, you could definitely see more runs if the games are closer or if they've got a significant lead or enough of a lead to be running out the clock. So, yeah, there's always that balance. But the ability to match score for score like they've shown the past year, I don't think that's going away.
It is fairly remarkable, too. Like, again, it's early. We still have all of August here for someone in Dallas to say something crazy. But, like, George Pickens just signed the franchise tag. It was offered. He signed it. No holdout, no complaining, no bellyaching, no nothing. Jerry Jones had an opening press conference. You know, there was some weirdness around the questions about if they was going to trade for Max Crosby, but he was being careful to not tamper, and everything was just, like, fairly normal. And it's just okay. Dallas is a good football team with expectations. Normally there is a circus around them. There is a documentary around them.
Part of it is because you look at the division, right? Like they're probably the most complete team right now, second to complete team. I mean, the Eagles, from a standpoint, is probably the most complete team. But I think we know who they are. I think offensively, we know they can score. Defensively, I think we believe they're going to be better. I think if you look at every team in the division, there's multiple question marks on how they're going to perform. I think we know Dallas is going to be a juggernaut of offense. So you have confidence that they're going to run the division and land in the playoffs.
And if they've been doing something for 30 years that hasn't really worked, why not try doing something different? Why not try, instead of lighting a bunch of fires, instead of creating a bunch of headlines, maybe a nice, quiet, confident off-season could be a really big positive for Dallas.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it works out for him. Moving on to Kansas City. Now, we do not have official video of Mahomes dancing at Travis and Taylor's wedding, but Training camp footage seems like he's ahead of schedule, given that he's already been fully cleared. Here's Andy Reid on what he's seen from Mahomes in practice. Willie, what version of Mahomes do you expect this year?
Probably a more calculated one. I know from my offensive lineman that when you deal with a quarterback dealing with a knee injury, the quarterback now evaluates the pocket differently, right? Because he's used to having his legs to get out the back door and improvise. Now he's going to have to step in the pocket and maybe buy some time and really kind of take some hits, or maybe just be more dependent on the run game. I think for Patrick Mahomes right now, the question is, what do I have around me? As far as Xavier Worthy, Rashid Rice, Travis Kelce, as much as we love him, he's aging, right? So, and you talk about offensive line, that there's still some questions. You got Justin Simmons, who didn't play a whole lot last year for whatever reason, now back in the fold. So I think there's still questions with the offense. I think with him, per se, I think the knee will still be an issue. I think it's going to be a slow transition. I don't see him coming out the gate and being explosive, buying time with his legs, running for first downs. I think he's going to be a lot more careful, a lot more cautious.
And when I look at this, and every injury is different, and every person comes back from injuries differently, but I try to look at things historically that have taken place. Remember, Tom had that serious injury coming off of a fantastic season, and then I wanted to see what he did the following season. So if we can bring that up, this is Tom Brady. The first year prior to the injury, was his undefeated season. You see the points per game, touchdown interception ratio was ridiculous at 50-8. Passer
Pretty
rating.
good year.
And so then he gets hurt and he comes back the year later. Now we've come down in games, we've come down in points, we've come down pretty dramatically in TD and interceptions and quarterback rating. And so that's what happened historically. And we're talking about a guy that didn't have to move around, as opposed to Patrick Mahomes, who one of his strengths is moving around. And if you look at Patrick's year last year, we're starting at a much lower level. One of his worst seasons in terms of completion percentage, quarterback rating, the percentage with which he was sacked. So it's not like he's coming off the undefeated, or a Super Bowl season. Coming off a pretty rough season with an injury.
There's a lot of. I respect the history there, but that team wasn't as good. That he did not have Randy Moss to throw to. Xavier Worthy was hurt last year. It's just that I look at Mahomes.
But Danny, I totally get that. But the worst completion percentage, the worst quarterback rating. Was this the worst team that he's had in his career?
I mean, they had a lot of things go wrong for them last year offensively, including Pat being hurt, right? That would be pretty high up on the list. But I just felt like they had a revolving door of pass catchers for him last year. I looked at it a little differently. The big addition for them is Kenneth Walker. And it's a running back, and so, it's not the most valued position in the league. And I don't know where you guys come out. There's a little bit of a debate, I feel like, in the analytics community. I'm like, if a better running game means you'll be better in play action, or if the play action numbers are more predicated on your deep threats.
Right.
But I wanted to look at how Mahomes has been off of play action, because it seems logical to me that the more of a threat you are to run the ball, the more effective your play action should be. Touchdown to interception ratio last 3 seasons, Mahomes is 9 touchdowns and 9 picks on play action. Pedestrian. Has not been a weapon.
Sure.
And they have not had much of a threat of running the ball. They've been ranked in the 20s most of the years running the football. You go back before that, and again, it did coincide with Tyreek Hill being there, which is part of the deep threat, and they weren't an amazing running team, but they were better. 38 touchdowns against 7 picks. If you add Kenneth Walker, and Mahomes is this smart, cerebral player who knows how to pick you apart from the pocket, and you add a running game to Mahomes, I would personally be expecting this to be Mahomes' best season since 2022. 2022, he won the MVP. I'm not saying he will be the MVP of the league, but he'll be above 27 touchdowns, which he hasn't been since 2022. He'll be above 4,300 yards, which he hasn't been since 2022, roughly in that area. I would expect Patrick Mahomes to have his best year in 4 years because he'll have more of a running game.
I like the way you're thinking. I didn't know you were such an advocate of the running game.
I mean,
it's great.
You got to be balanced.
No, but it is great that he's seeing the value of a really good running game.
Hang out with you, Coach. Hang out with you, Coach.
Well, on top of that, I think one thing that we have to pay attention to is if there were goals going into this offseason, as far as going into the season, the run game has to now become feared, right? The defense no longer fears the run game in the Chiefs. They had one rushing play over 20 yards last year. right? And so that's bad. That's bad for TV.
Well, because then all you're doing is taking away the pass, right? Like, weigh in on that. Do you believe play action is more effective if you have a better running game? Like, are those two things correlated?
Yeah, that's peanut butter and jelly. That goes together.
Absolutely necessary. And like, it's not just the better running game. You have to be able to sell the play action too when you go to the pass. Like, it's a group and concerted effort to do it. And they have to know that you're really committed to the running game. That it's not just, hey, this is what we do, but not really what we do.
Well, then with what they paid Kenneth Walker and the fact that Mahomes is coming off of the knee injury, I expect them to be committed to the running game, which is going to make Mahomes' life.
Well, that's why you go get Eric Bieniemy, right?
And they brought back Bieniemy, who was right there too in that 2020 to 2022.
He was a part of all that success
in terms of the play action. That's right. Moving on to Detroit. Now the Lions finished 9-8 last season, which was good enough for last place in the loaded NFC North. They missed the playoffs, so Dan Campbell wants to get back. This is going to shock you. Dan Campbell wants to play smash mouth football. These are the odds in the NFC North. Despite finishing last year, the odds makers still favor the Lions to come out of arguably the toughest division in football. Coach, do you look at the Lions and say they deserve to be the favorites in that division?
Yeah, when you look at the issues that were there, so they had the offensive coordinator turnover prior to the season. Then they go into the season, it's not working out. They turn over the offensive coordinator in Game 10. But across the board, Jared Goff, I think, was fourth or fifth in touchdowns and right around there in yards. Jahmyr Gibbs had another Pro Bowl season. They had the only two wide receivers in the league, the only tandem that had over 1,000 yards combined, and right on down the line, there was success after success after success with all of the noise and distractions and other things that went wrong. So I don't think they're very far away at all. And now with Dan going through the transition in offensive coordinator, he's better prepared for dealing with that too.
Yeah, and I also think part of it, Coach Campbell, Dan Campbell made that statement because he's in the heart of training camp, and they start running back, Jahmyr Gibbs is doing a holding, right? And so now there was a question asked, like, how do you feel? What do you need to see going into the season that's going to make you feel comfortable? He was like, I want to know if we can run the ball, right? I want to know if we can stop the run, and I want to know if we can protect on the back, and how can we stand up in a situation of football. I think every head coach, and since I've been, Coach can attest to this, when you start the season, there's things you need to see to make sure your team's ready for the starting line. And when you don't have your star running back, you lost David Montgomery, and you start to say, man, there's some continuity we need before we start this thing. And Jahmyr Gibbs right now isn't playing. He's saying, I'm holding out. I want more money, and rightfully so.
They're going to pay him.
You would think, but they don't have to because they still have to pay Sam Laporta. They still have to pay Brian Branch. There's still 2 more years on this deal. So I think for Coach Campbell, that is, I think there's a situation goes, I need my guy in the building doing what he does best right now for me to feel good about the season. So I think that's why some of that apprehension is right now.
Well, it's also 2 years ago they were fourth in amount of rushing attempts per game, and last year they were 26.
Yep.
So it's pretty obvious what one of the big factors was in the success and failure overall of the team. And I'm sure he's looking at that and saying, hey, we're at least going to be top 10 and maybe top 5.
Well, yeah, what happened last year, just to put an even bigger sample on it, it was jarring. They had 6 games where they ran for less than 75 yards last year. In the previous 3 seasons, they had that number of games. We could put it up there just so that you know that Troy actually backed it up graphically. But, that was the thing that you could count on most went away for them. And now part of that, sure, is David Montgomery. Yep. Part of it was offensive line health and the weirdness of the season and not playing from out in front as much as they did. But I had no problem when the Lions opened as the favorite in this division because they have the largest body of work. The Lions have been a very good team and a contending team for going on 4 years now.
Sure.
They got blown out in that playoff game when they were the 1 seed against Washington, but they were decimated with injuries on the defensive side of the ball, still scored 31 points. The year before that, I remember they beat the Chiefs in the opener when the Chiefs hung the banner. The Lions have been a really good team for a number of years, making the playoffs, playing in big games, scoring a ton of points. The Bears have had 1 year of success. The Packers have been inconsistent. The Vikings have another new quarterback. So I have no problem with the Lions being the favorite, but I don't think that they are much better than any other team in this division. Like, I think there are question marks about all 4 teams in the NFC North.
Yeah, but I think they're ahead of the Bears. I think
Listen, the odds say that they are for sure.
They're ahead of the Packers. I think the one question for the Lions going into the season is the secondary, right? That's the one sore spot. Offensively, there's some issues on the offensive line dealing with injuries and who suits
Got a lot of new pieces on the. I mean, they're counting on hitting it with Miller at right tackle. Penei Sewell, the best right tackle in football, is playing left tackle, so that's at least somewhat of a.
But they still have that high
end. Hayes, the free agent center they got from Carolina.
Yeah, it could be 4 new starters in terms of where they're playing on the offensive line.
But as far as their high-end talent, they still have it. They still have Monte Browns. They still have Jameson Williams. They still have,
Laporta,
the gang.
No doubt.
So the gang's still there. The problem is I think the window's closing. And I think that's part of the anxiety with this ball club is how long can you keep these guys around, considering some guys have to get paid, and the division as a whole is getting a lot better.
But it's amazing that they were 4th in scoring and 5th in yards last year offensively, with all the things that were going on the offensive side of the ball, and the amount of individual sort of accolades that guys got throughout the course of the season, and for them to finish the way they did.
Well, they didn't have a bad season. Like they had defensive injuries again. It was a weird offensive line year, and they still finished with 9 wins. I think that's why they're the favorites. They have a very high floor, and the running game. I'd like to think that some of it is Ben Johnson, given that I'm a Bears guy, and the Bears were such a great rushing team last year with nowhere near as much running back talent as they've had in Detroit. I do think some of that was the brilliance of Ben Johnson leaving Detroit and going to Chicago.
But don't you think it feels like such a worse season because it's 15 wins the year before?
No question.
So they've declining by 6 wins, even though you have a winning season, still feels like, oof.
No, but I'm saying if that was a bad year,
right,
that's why they're the favorites this year. If a bad year is still 9 wins.
And that's what's the amazing thing, too, about what's happened in Detroit, is 9-8 is now a bad season, where for a lot of years that would have been, you might have gotten a parade.
Yeah, I guess Dan Campbell has officially changed the culture there. But listen, be the preseason favorites. The Bears will take care of it. Thanks for hanging out with us on First Things First. Let's talk Jags. They came off a 13-4 season where they won the AFC South. Hype around them heading into this year, it's got to be at an all-time high. But according to Liam Cohen, who says according to Google, no one's talking about it.
Nobody's looking for it.
Liam Cohen in real time learning about market size. It's amazing. Coach, we know you are a fan of the Prince. So I assume you have him outplaying Caleb Williams this year?
Well, first of all, I don't know. I guess with that interview,
it's fantastic.
He was talking about the value of not being talked about. And there is, look, from a coaching perspective, that's what you want. You don't want to be the team that's being talked about all the time. It's a much better space not to be, because you're not dealing with a bunch of distractions. Seattle last year was 60-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. Arizona had better odds to win the Super Bowl. It's okay to not be talked about. It's a good spot. So you probably shouldn't complain about it. But in terms of Trevor versus Caleb, yeah, Trevor could outplay him just like he outplayed him last year. If we bring up the numbers, we saw it earlier in the week. I know you don't want to see this.
Oh.
He had 13 wins.
Danny.
He had 4,000 yards. He had 38 total TDs.
Well, you're
and
gonna
he
have
had
to
a better passer rating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, could he do it again this year? Yeah. And I don't know why it's really a question, because he already did it once.
Okay. Don't. All right, can you just wait to score the argument until it's over, please?
I'm just saying, if you're going to swing, that's how you come out swinging.
Please put it back up on the screen. How long has Trevor Lawrence been in the NFL? Last year was 5 years, right?
Oh, we're putting asterisks on it? Okay.
No, I think we can grade on a curve here. Last year was year 2 for Caleb, year 5 for Trevor.
Sure.
Right? Okay.
Okay, so remember, we're grading on a curve from now on.
All right, so I'm supposed to be wowed by 65 more passing yards for year 5 Trevor than year 2 Caleb. I'm supposed to be wowed by 0.9 passer rating points. I noticed you didn't have interceptions on there, because you know what? Trevor Lawrence beat him there. He had 12.
He did have 12.
Compared to, what was it, 5 for Caleb?
Do you have a graphic that shows that?
I don't. It's all on top of the dome, Coach. 61% completion percentage for Trevor, 58 for Caleb. I'm supposed to be wowed by 3 percentage points for a year 5 player versus a year 2 player. You know what else wasn't on there? Playoff wins. I know you like those. Ooh. Caleb had 1. Trevor, goose egg. So, I mean, is there a chance Trevor outplays Caleb? Yeah, but I'm guessing that year 3 ascending Caleb is going to pass your beloved Prince and leave him in the dust.
And that's another comment I have for Liam, is he obviously doesn't watch First Things First, because we do talk about the Prince, and Nick gave him
Put us on in the facility,
nickname.
Coach.
Come
on.
Throw on FS1. He gets talked about. Look, I didn't know we were grading on a curve. I thought we were evaluating. And
there's a projection here.
If you were the number 1 overall draft pick and
As
you came into the league
Yeah.
and you said, hey, we're never going to have to punt the ball, texting the punter, don't worry about it, and all those things, I would imagine there's expectations that come with that. But let's grade him on a
I feel like if year 2 of one guy is basically equal to year 5 of the other guy, I think that it's totally reasonable that by year 3, that guy would pass the other one in year 6. That feels, call it a curve.
Well, I mean, you
logical.
would say the same thing about someone who's drafted number 1 overall versus someone who's drafted further down in the draft. You would expect the number 1 overall draft pick to be better than,
Sure, but these guys were both drafted number 1.
No, I was talking about like Jaden Daniels, his first year.
Okay. How was Jaden last year?
I'm just saying, should we grade? Should we have graded that on a curve or not?
Jaden was very good as a rookie. That's a good point. All right, score that one for Coach.
Well, I say this. I think both of them have continuity on their side, right? So that's a win for both of them. Considering Liam Cohen has another year with Trevor Lawrence, and obviously Caleb with Ben Johnson. I think the issue with Trevor Lawrence is that he's had stretches of elite play, but then his production sometimes falters because of coaching, production, protection or whatever. But I think what Caleb has to prove next year is that from snap to snap, he can be efficient. That's one of the goals, right? So I think both of them, there's room for growth. But I think right now, who's probably the more hungry, if I had to say, has to be Trevor Lawrence, because I think we've watched him long enough, and I think we're looking at him to have that true kind of statement game. I think we're still waiting for that type of game. To your point, Danny, I think him going, Caleb going into his 3rd year, I think we're still growing with Caleb. I think we're ready to turn the channel with Trevor, and hopefully he gives us something before we kind of completely write him off.
Trevor was.
Caleb lit up Drake May too, right? Statistically last year.
No, he didn't.
I don't know. He did.
Okay, all right, Coach.
I can't remember
who would you rather have?
I'm just grading on a curve.
I'm just asking. Okay, all right. New topic. New topic. Who would you rather have, Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams?
Right now?
Yeah.
Come on. Which team do I have?
No, you're drafting a team. The team is starting. You don't have a roster. It's the first round.
I don't know. I'd have to evaluate.
Oh my God! What a cop out. Come on, Willie.
I'm gonna go Trevor.
Like it, Willie.
I'm gonna go Trevor.
Based on what?
He's the tougher quarterback.
The tougher quarterback.
By far the tougher quarterback. Multiple all-line switches. Didn't really have a big run. I mean, there's a lot to go.
What about Caleb is not tough? Excuse me, I'm confused.
I want to keep my job. That's what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh! Listen, okay.
I took Jaden Daniels in the draft.
He wasn't available.
Oh, he wasn't?
The question was Trevor or Caleb. And if you want to hang your hat on a nice 6-game sample of Trevor Lawrence to finish year 5 as to why he's going to be better than Caleb Williams based on how he finished last season in year 2, by all means. I am comfortable being over here with Caleb Williams. And you can hang out over
Listen, he won't have his star center. Drew Doman's retired, right? So now he has to sit in the pocket and be the elite, complete quarterback by dissecting and being more efficient once again, snap to snap.
You're taking Trevor Lawrence over Caleb Williams because of Drew Doman?
Yeah, because Drew Doman called the protection. He did a lot for Caleb. All Caleb had to do was handle his side of the ball. Not his side of the ball.
He's the quarterback.
Not his side of the ball. That's wrong words. But I said there wasn't a lot on his plate when Drew Doman was in.
And Trevor Lawrence had a tough rookie year and then came back and had a really successful and positive second year. So let's see how it goes in year 3.
Listen, at least you answered the question.
I'm a swing.
At least you answered.
I'm going with Trevor.
All right, you can go with Trevor. Coach is, taking Jada Daniels. Well, that
I
wasn't
was
A or B. You took D.
I got caught up with grading on a curve. I'm stuck there.
All right, fine. Let's stick with this story because this is going so well. Ben Johnson was asked this morning if he had heard the comments from Liam Cohen, and surprisingly, his algorithm talks nothing but Jaguars. It's unbelievable. Here was Ben Johnson's response to Liam Cohen. This one gets me mad too. Should I go first or last?
Go first.
Your team.
Be angry.
You want me to go
team.
first? Okay, so the question is buying a Bears regression is
Yeah.
on the board. Yeah, of course, it's on the board. But in order to regress, you have to be regressing from somewhere good. You know who else is a regression candidate? The Super Bowl champion 14-win Seahawks. You know who else is a regression candidate? The AFC champion 14-win Patriots. You know who else is a regression candidate? Trevor Lawrence, your favorite, and the 13-win Jaguars, or the 14-win Broncos. You know who's not a regression candidate? Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, because they were terrible last year. Okay, like you have to be great in order to be a candidate to regress. So yeah, is the offensive line probably going to be more injured than last year? Yeah. Are they going to lead the league in fourth quarter comebacks? Probably not. Are they going to lead the league in takeaways? Probably not. But Caleb Williams improved so much from year 1 to year 2. If he improves that much from year 2 to year 3, you can make fun of this if you want, coach, but he will be in the MVP conversation based on the year 1 to year 2 jump. If he takes the same jump from year 2 to year 3, that will more than make up for it, and regression talk will be earned because they were good, but it will be silly because 18 will be awesome.
Yeah, but I think it's a little more complex than that. I think from this standpoint, nobody expected the Bears to run the ball as well as they did last season, right? So now people are looking at that component of their game as a strength. So people are going to be hunkering in to stop the run. On top of that, the run game saved Caleb, right? And on top of that, we're hoping Caleb can play all 4 quarters. We know that historically, especially last year, he was a second-half quarterback. And defensively right now, they still need help. Right? So the regression with all that is still real. Like we won't see this high octane offense like we saw last year because I think more people are looking at, they're going to take them serious. And especially with the fact that right now, Caleb, listen, there's going to be more on his plate to do more and be better.
Why, whenever Ben Johnson calls plays, they're an awesome running team. Like, people take the Rams seriously. We expect them to be a good offense. People take the Cowboys seriously. We expect them to be a good offense. People take the Bengals seriously. We expect them to be a good offense. Why the Bears are going to be taken seriously so Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams won't be able to move the ball?
I think if you look at last year and how they played their games, there was a lot of times where Caleb wasn't doing anything. Right? It was the run game that saved them through the game and allowed him to have those fourth quarter comebacks. My point is, if you're a defense right now, you say, hey, man, if we stop the run and force Caleb to beat us, that's a different aspect than what he had to deal with last year. So, yeah, they may be regression if he's not from the neck up there right now.
And I don't know why you're frustrated with the regression talk. And I think that a little bit of what Ben was saying is he was tongue-in-cheek, obviously, saying they're the number 1 regression.
Oh, he hears it. He hears it.
So and the reality is regression happens more often than you realize or that we talk about, because we always talk about worst to first. Very rarely do we talk about it going the other way, but just look at the ones from last season. These are all significant. 15-2 down to 6-11, 12-5 down to 5-12, 15-2 down to 9-8. These are significant amount of games where teams have regressed, and it happens just like there's 4 or 5 teams that go to the playoffs that weren't very good. There's 4 or 5 teams that are pretty good that suddenly take steps back.
But also, all those teams up there, they've made deep playoff runs, right? And so sometimes, I've heard you say this on here, like sometimes when you're a team that's accustomed of taking those long runs, your team necessarily may not be covered from the past year, right? And so I think we're watching the Bears, they may be going through that. They haven't been accustomed to making those playoff runs. So they go into this season, they're like, man, we're still trying to shake off last year.
And you're trying to learn how to deal with success, and you're hoping that the things that you've added, the pieces you added are going to be really positive, and the pieces that you lost, you're going to be able to compensate for. And the way that you're being played is going to be a little different than the way you're played last year. Your schedule's more challenging. You may have Thursday night games or Monday night games or playing at 4 o'clock, which you didn't have before, playing on holiday, all those things that are disruptors that you have to adjust to with success.
But I mean, to be clear, I'm saying you are only a candidate for regression if you're good. So the idea that the Bears are a regression candidate does not bother me at all. Just what they are a regression candidate, just like the Patriots are a regression candidate. The exact same.
Mediocre teams that become really bad.
Okay, but I mean, I don't.
So regression.
Listen, they won the NFC North last year. They won a playoff game. They almost beat the Rams in the divisional round. Like I don't think they were a mediocre team.
Yeah, but
I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying regression can take a lot of forms.
I think you're right by saying, listen, to be good, regression is a part of it, right? But I also I look at it from this standpoint. It's how you regress. Like if Caleb takes a step backwards where he's turning over the ball more, where he looks, from a mechanic standpoint, he looks all over the place in the pocket. Those are legit regressions you have to worry about because of everything that coach just talked about.
If that happens, I will absolutely be concerned. I will be floored if that happens. If like Caleb Williams personally regresses, I think he's too talented with too good of a coach. Like they might lose more games. They could. The division is awesome. Yeah. The wrong guy could get hurt and all of that. But I think when you are a blue chip talent with a blue chip coach and you're as young as he is and you have as much buy-in as those two guys have together, like I don't think Caleb's going to be worse this year individually. I think the team could be. I will be floored if Caleb is worse this year.